Before we go over the instructions, Eli, let's take a look at some of the tools you got. Now, you see right here, this orange mat. You got this. This is to help protect mom's table or whatever workspace you're working at. Trust me, moms don't like it when you ruin their dining room tables. So this is a cutting mat. You can put your knife on there and it won't hurt it, right? There's my knife. Can't even tell I just ran the knife across it, okay? And it's got these little areas where you can put little pieces and parts, maybe lay paintbrushes across here or even stick them upright in these holes back here. Over here in the upper left, you've got these little compartments. Now, the lid on this one's a little bit messed up. Got a little off in the manufacturing process maybe, but it still works. It just kind of squeezes down into that hole. And that's how all of these work. You just kind of squeeze it down. But you can put little parts in there that you don't want to lose. All right. So use this to build on, and it'll also catch if you spill your glue or something. It'll catch that. All right. So from there, one of your most important tools is your hobby knife. All right. This is an X-Acto brand knife, and the blade that's on it, which is very sharp, that's a number 11 X-Acto blade. It will cut you very easily, so be very, very, very careful. No fooling around with this thing. All right. And when it starts to get dull, you can change it. The way you do that, this end down here, hold the body of the blade with one hand, and with this hand, you loosen the nut, and it actually loosens this portion here where the blade fits. All right. See that little cross piece? If I were to tighten this up without a blade in it, you'll see how that cross piece tightens up and there's no gap. All right, so that's what's holding your blade in place. Now, let's get it put back in there. All right, so just down in there and then tighten it up. And now your blade is good. But when it wears out and starts to get dull, you can change the blades. And you've got extra blades in this thing. It's spring-loaded, so you slide the top one out. All right. And I think there's 20 blades in this. And the old one, see this little slot right here? You take the old blade and you just drop it in that slot, and now it can't hurt anybody or you. All right. And then when all your blades are gone and this is full, you can throw this whole thing into a trash can. And it keeps people from getting cut on the old blades. All right. So there's that. And we'll just put that here for now. All right. The next tool. All right. This is another one. Mine's going to look a little different, but this is important for you as well. This is called a sprue cutter. And the sprue is the framework that your parts are attached to. All right. This portion here that your parts are attached to, that's called the sprue. And this is how you want to cut them free. Now I'll show you, mine look a little different. All right, but it's all the same process. And if you look at yours, like mine, there's a flat side to them, okay? You want the flat side against your part. So if this is, I don't know, let's say my hand is a wing, and it's attached to the sprue right here. You want to go against the wing as close as you can get it, and then squeeze that apart and cut the sprue right at the edge. All right. The problem, if you do it this way, you leave more of that attachment point on the piece you want, and it takes more work to get rid of that. If you cut it with the backside against the part, you leave very little left, and it's easier to clean up that little bit than it is the bigger portion of it. All right. So that's how those are used. It's called a sprue cutter or a sprue nipper. A lot of guys call them a nipper. So that's that. Let me put mine back. Another thing that is useful. Now, you may not use these as much since you're younger and your fingers are a little smaller than mine, but tweezers. Now, you'll see there's different kinds. This one has like a little flat hands almost, right? And then this one here on the end is angled a little bit, all right? The ones here are just normal tweezers, all right? Mine are a little bit finer than that. See the point on mine? And these, by the way, are also very sharp. I've poked myself multiple times with those already. And then this one, this is what's called a locking tweezers. And I'll show you a similar one. This is one that I have. If I turn it this way, you can see better. All right, if I push here, the jaws come apart. And if I let go, they come back together and they hold whatever is in them. So I just got a little piece of scrap plastic here. So I squeeze them apart, put the piece in there, and now it's holding on. Sometimes I can use that if I need to paint a part and I don't want to hold it with my fingers. I can use the tweezers to hold it while I paint it. So that's how you would use that one. It's called a locking tweezers. All right? They don't actually lock, but they grip whatever is in them. Whereas, you know, the other tweezers, you have to manually grip the part, and as soon as you let go, it's going to drop whatever piece is in there. So they work kind of opposite of each other. All right, so that's that. And then, oh yeah, one of the very important pieces is your glue. All right, this is called, the brand name is called Mr. Cement. It's for plastic models, and it's very much like the Tamiya Ultra Thin cement that I use. Same basic consistency. It's a liquid glue. It's very watery. And I tell you what, I won't open yours. I'll open mine since it's already open. They're made the same way. There's this little brush attached to the cap. And when you need to glue two pieces together, we'll take these pieces again. All right. You don't need a lot. You just need a little bit. I even wipe it off on the side of the jar. All right. We'll just put a little bit there. And then we'll hold these together for a moment. And voila, those are glued together. And the way this works, all right, you have to be careful with the glue as well, because what it does is it ever so slightly melts that plastic, but it melts them together. So now they're like one piece, right? That's why you don't want to use too much, because if you get too much on there and that glue runs somewhere, it'll soften the plastic and it may misshapen a part of the model that you don't want to get messed up. All right, so you got to be careful how much of that you apply. And we'll go through this as we're building together. I'll show you how I'm doing it, and you can follow along. So your glue bottle looks different than mine. It is a different brand, but they both work the same way, okay? And then another useful tool are files, all right, sanding files. And you can even use, like, Mom probably has some fingernail files, and I'll show you one that I have. All right, this is just a regular fingernail file. You'll see it even says Revlon. That's the maker of a lot of the ladies' products. All right, so those come in handy. That's not a specific grit. Like if you feel this and you feel some others, there'll be a lot, all right, we call it grit, scratchier. Let's say that. So I've got some others here. These are hobby specific, and you'll see there's numbers on here. And the way this works, the numbers, all right, the smaller the number, all right, let me get these in order here. Okay, so the smaller the number, here's 100, 240. Nope, I am not in order at all. 100, 180, 240, and 400. All right, and you can see on this the difference. See the grit of that? All right, the smaller the number, the more grit it has. So the faster it'll sand something off. So you got to be aware of what you're using, because you may not want to sand too much of it off. You may just want to take a little bit, and in that case, you want to use something with a larger number. So the larger the number, the less grit there is to it. It'll still sand plastic, but not as quickly as this one will. And I actually have others that go much higher than the 400. I think here's one of them. This is actually 2000 grit. Now you can't even hardly feel anything on there, but if you ran this across plastic, it will definitely leave marks in it. So that's what your sanding files are for. And this package says that there's 240 and 320 grit. All right, so 240, that's this one. It's a little gritty. And then the 320 would be in between these two. But you'll use them. We'll use them both. All right. And lastly, paintbrushes. All right. And the way paintbrushes are labeled, so these are like a liner. If you to draw lines with them, they call that a liner. And they're numbered as well. And you'll see there's 3/0, there's 5/0, there's 0, and there's 1. And the way those are numbered, the smaller the number, the smaller the brush. So over here we have the 1, all right, and then here's the 0, and then this one is what we call a 3/0. Instead of 0, they say 0. So that's 3/0, a little bit smaller than the 0. Here's 5/0, a little bit smaller than the 3/0. And this last one, if I can roll it over, there we go. It says 10/0. All right, so that's your smallest brush. And you'll use those in different situations. You may want to use the 1 because you've got a bigger area to paint, so you need more paint on the brush. Now you might use the 10/0 because you've got just a little bitty piece that you need to add just a little bit of paint to, and you don't want to add too much, so use the smaller brush and use less paint when you do it. All right? So the brushes lead us to one more thing, the paint. Now I'm sending you these little bottles, and these are all the colors you're going to need to build your model. Okay? And they may say, like this one says Mecha Color. All right? Sometimes they brand these for doing like model robot stuff. All right? The brand name on this is Vallejo. Here's one. Here we go. Here's Vallejo, but it says Model Air. All right? Ideally, these are made to be airbrushed. But this particular paint is one of the better ones if you're going to be using a hand brush, not an airbrush like I have, but we won't be using it on this model, all right? We'll be using our paint brushes. And it's an acrylic paint, which is water-based. So there's no foul chemicals in this. It's not going to be terribly dangerous to use. I mean, you still need to be careful with it. You don't want to spill it everywhere. And it comes in these little dropper bottles. All right, I will open this one up. See, it's got a little bitty hole, and you just turn it over and you put out a drop or two, or however many you think you may need, and then put our cap back on it. All right, they'll have to be shaken, but there's your color, and they'll say, all right, this says gunmetal metallic. All right, so it's just kind of a dark silver gray with a little bit of a metallic coloring to it, all right? And we'll use that. All right, this one says pure black, right? But if you look, it's got a little bit of a blue tint to it. So it may, even though it says pure black, when it dries, there may be just a little hint of a bluish color to it. Don't really know, doesn't really matter. Because we can also take this black and we can take white. And if we mix those two together, we get a gray, depending on how much black or how much white. It could be light gray or dark gray, right? If we needed that. I don't think we're going to need any gray. But even something like this, here's orange, right? If you needed that orange to be just a little bit lighter, see how dark it is compared to our matte? All right, if we needed that a little lighter, you could mix a little white to that. And that orange would get lighter, just like the working mat that you have in front of you. All right? So you've got all the colors here that you're going to need to build your model. All right, a couple more things I thought about last minute that I'm including in your package. This is a package of 9-well paint palettes, all right? They're like little dimples, and you put your drops of paint in each one. That way it's easier for you to keep it in one area, and you can mix colors together in one and not the other. All right, and there's a package of 10 in here. So in case you can't wash them out or they get too old and ratty, you can just throw it away and use another one. So you've got those. And the other thing, I'm giving you a roll of this Tamiya tape. It's a Japanese tape, T-A-M-I-Y-A. And it's a masking tape in this little container. And this is actually a reusable container for it. You can buy refills of the tape, if I can get this apart to show you. There. So the tape roll comes out and you can replace it with a new one. I use this quite a bit. Now, you and I are not going to be spray painting except for maybe our body of the car. We might use what we call a rattle can spray paint for that. But we won't need to mask off the paints for different colors. But a lot of times that's what I use this for. Or if I have to mask off canopies on an aircraft that has a framework around it, I'll mask off the window portions of that while I spray the framework. But it can also be used to hold pieces together while they're drying. When glue is drying, instead of having to hold it with your fingers the whole time, you might use a piece of tape to hold that together. There's other uses, and I'm sure we'll come to a few of those while we're building our cars together. And one more last minute add-on. This is Tester's tube glue. This is the kind of stuff that I started with. Nearly every kid starts with this. I don't use it a lot. In fact, I really use something a little bit different, but we're going to use this together. I've sent one to you, and you've got these little tips that go on the tube. All right. I won't put that one on right now. Anyway, the one problem with this, and it's part of the reason I don't use it so much anymore, is it gets real stringy, right? You put some on and then you try to pull the tip away and it leaves what look like spider webs and it gets all over your model and it can be messy. But I'll show you a way that we can use this that's going to minimize the chance that you're going to get glue where you don't want it, okay? So that's in there also. You're going to have a couple of tips like this and a tube of glue just like this. So with all this, now we can look at the instructions, all right?